Welcome to Drupal Night, sponsored by BioRAFT. Tonight we have Micky presenting on cooperatives and collectives, thinking outside the box. Take it away.
Hello. Hi. Wow, full house. Everyone's full belly too. This was a great event, great dinner. BioRAFT is excellent hosting these. I can't say enough good things about them, the work they do, and that they get the Drupal community together outside of their work. And lots of them are here tonight. So I'm going to talk a bit about cooperatives and collectives. And first things, a little bit of background and examining some constructs and concepts around cooperatives. So is anyone here in a cooperative? A couple of people, yes. Okay. And does everyone here know what a shared ownership model is when it pertains to a business? Okay, so I don't see any hands. So does anyone have an idea why you would choose cooperation over competition to get ahead? No. All right, well. So that's just one way you can get into cooperatives without working in one or being a part of one. It's a really simple choice that we all can make in our daily lives. So what are the choices when we're working within the industry? Most of you are developers or work somehow with Drupal or in the tech-related industry. So these are basically the choices we have while we're working. We could be a freelancer, where you do everything, or you could work for a corporate job, or you could be part of a cooperative. So there's differences in all of them. With a freelancer, you kind of have that clock running where you have to get your next project in. You know, what are you going to be doing next? You've got, you know, a project now, but what about next week? Corporate job, well, you could have job security unless the project you're working on gets canceled, and then you're out of a job. A cooperative, people kind of stick together and help you through things in a cooperative. It's more of a connected, networking way of having work instead of just going to a job. So working at a traditional company, it's not all that bad because you do have several things that you can rely upon. You're not always chasing your next job. You're not always looking for work unless you know the project you're working on is going to be canceled. So The processes for nearly everything are defined by the company that you work for. You get a salary, or you get piecework or an hourly pay. The benefits of your savings, and you have retirement plans. Those might be important to some people, but there's some other things to consider. There's aspects that are things we wish we could change, and I know some people go to the boss and ask for changes, but it's not always easy because there's a bureaucracy and there's a layer and a process that you go through in a corporation to get information passed up the chain. It really doesn't go up a chain as easily as it seems to come down to you. So I'm going to go through these slides pretty quickly. They're a little bit text heavy, but my slides will be available on SlideShare after the presentation and on Drupal nights. So shared ownership models in the United States. We've probably seen some of these and can probably think of them. Just about any business could be turned into a cooperative. There are lots of shared business models that we know about, but we don't really think about them like that. We just think it's a business, this is another business. But these are categories where there are lots of opportunities for cooperatives to be built. And one way to go about it is to look at the needs in your community, look at the needs around you, and form alliances with people who are also interested in serving community needs and building something together. So the real benefits of the shared ownership model are the 7 cooperative principles. Let's take a little bit of time on this. In a cooperative, it's voluntary and open membership. The company is really based on how you structure it yourselves. There's no super set of things you have to have in a cooperative. So democratic control, meaning one member, one vote. Everyone has an equal vote. Cooperatives can be structured differently. Some, everyone gets the same pay. Some, everyone gets a different pay. Some have different hours, different job duties and titles. Some are structured in a hierarchy. But the basic tenet of a cooperative, and the second principle, is one member, one vote. There's member economic participation, meaning that in my cooperative, specifically, we vote on what we want to do with surplus income. You know, it's, we get to choose in a consensus way of what we would like to do with this excess money that we have at the end of the year or at different times. Autonomy and independence. I can speak from my experience. Our cooperative, we all trust each other implicitly to pretty much do the right thing that's good for all of us. Of course, we bring issues to the table and talk about them in a consensus way of making sure everyone kind of knows what's going on. But as in, like, say you have in a job at a regular company, hierarchical structure, they'll have a petty cash thing where they'll say, okay, if anything's under $25 and we need it for the office, you can get it. Well, it's kind of like that in a cooperative. You know, after you've been working with people for a while, you kind of know which things you must bring to the table, but, you know, I don't have to go ask them if I can buy a ream of paper for the printer, things like that. Education, training, and information are constantly shared between us. In fact, Agaric has a show and tell day. Every Monday at 1 o'clock, we meet online and do a screen sharing and share knowledge, tidbits, things we've learned about Drupal or other programming or projects that we're working on. It's basically a skill share and knowledge share, so everyone gets like 5-10 minutes, or if you have a longer presentation, we're open to talking about that too. Cooperation among cooperatives. That means that when we're looking for a service or a product, we'll look for a cooperative first. That's just basically a way of networking and building on the cooperatives and making the money go. You know, the money is going back into doing something cooperative. They're not investing it in, you know, like hedge funds. No. Let's see. Concern for your community. That's a very important part of cooperatives aligned with social justice. As I said before, look around your community for things that are needed, and sure, you and other people in this Drupal community specifically can build these things, because there's lots of them that have been built already. Everyone's really smart and focused, and there are things like doing Drupal for good. That's just a great group to join on the D.O site. So what are some examples of successful cooperatives? There's Mondragon. Has anyone heard of Mondragon? Well, it's huge. They are like an umbrella company that starts cooperatives. So they're in more than 150 countries, and they have sales in more than 150 countries. That's just amazing. They have started so many cooperatives that at this point it may be getting too big. There's something to keep an eye on and watch and get involved with, like how are they working? Can a cooperative get too big? Can an organization get too big? Why do especially American corporations always say grow, grow, grow? Do we always have to grow? No, we have to have enough, right? So in Mondragon Worker Cooperative, they're worker-owned. Nobody gets a wage. Everyone gets a monthly advance on their share of the year's projected profit. That's kind of cool. So I guess they do tracking and projecting what they're going to make for the next year. So, and again, each worker has one vote. That's really important. Some local successes. There's a lot of cooperatives around here that are just starting, but these are some that have been around for a while. A Yard and a Half is right in Waltham. They do landscaping and indoor gardening in the winter, like, attending to all the plants in office buildings and things like that. They hire people locally from their community and do the whole process right there in Waltham, like from taking someone who knows pretty much nothing and training them also to do some of these jobs. Boston Tech Collective, seeing that you guys are techies, you might have heard of them. They provide like computer repairs and training workshops to learn how to use different computer operating systems, etc. But they're right in Somerville. Really nice guys. They have a long history in cooperatives. So one of the things about cooperatives is you should go out and meet some and talk to them. They're really willing to tell you what they did and how they did it. Don't say I said that. Red Sun Printing is a really old cooperative. They have a long history in Boston. You can do some searches on some of these companies and see what their history is, how they start, what's going on. Cero is really exciting. They're doing recycling, and recently there's a new law that restaurants, if they have over a ton of compost, they have to engage a service to deal with it. Well, Cero is really winning in that area by scooping up new contracts with restaurants that are going to be under this law. You might have heard of Equal Exchange. They're very successful. DiaHost Collective, they're our neighbors in Western Mass, and they do web hosting and information technology. So there's a link here when the slides are available. There's a directory where you can go and search for cooperatives in Massachusetts or all over the country. What are some examples of successful cooperatives using Drupal? Well, there's us. We're Agaric, and we've been a cooperative since, how long, Ben? Has it been? 2006. And right now, we were 3 people up until about 2.5 months ago, and we've been able to grow and add 2 new worker owners, and it's an amazing experience because it all points back to people are all invested in social justice, autonomy, consensus, and doing something that we feel is good for the community and the world. So it all kinds of works. We work as a collective. We share work on projects doing different roles, or maybe sometimes the same role, like a developer will jump out and onto a new project and one of the other developers will take over where they left off. We're worker controlled and we vote on what to do with our surplus. Does anyone have questions?
Other cooperatives in Drupal?
Are there other cooperatives in Drupal?
Quilted.
There's Quilted.
Which was bi-coastal, now on the West Coast. Collab, international.
Quilted is on the West Coast, and now they're on the East Coast also?
No, they were on the Coast. Now they're only West Coast.
Now they're only the West Coast? Okay. And there's Collab?
Yeah, the one in Coombit in Canada.
Coombit, they're not in the US, no, but Coombit is in Canada. And yes,
Yes.
successful cooperatives using Drupal, which is an awesome thing. Yes.
When you're building your team, are you essentially a bunch of people that are kind of a jack of all trades? Like each of you are skilled with a little bit of, sales and marketing, a little bit of development, a little bit of design, and you get a project and you don't know which piece you're going to do because you each have several skills, or do you start specializing where at some point in time you're going to have someone whose primary job is just sales and marketing, and they're not even a Drupal developer necessarily.
Right.
Like, at what point in time are you a group of freelancers working together versus growing into something a little bit more formal?
Okay. The question is, how, when we formed Agaric and have looking for new members or whatever, how are we all just freelancers that have overlapping skill sets and jack of all trades type things, and then we kind of feel out what our area of expertise is as a freelancer or as a contractor and see how we like working together? It's very organic, and it's not like we go out looking for a specific person to do a specific role.
You hire a person and then they create their own job.
Yes, it's kind of where you create your own job. It's kind of it's very hard to imagine when you've come from a constructed world of companies, but basically we mostly do what we love to do from morning till night. And of course there's always a few chores that you have to do because you know how to do them, like the poor programmers get saddled with fixing bugs. I don't have to fix a bug, but things like that. There's a few things you have to do, but pretty much it's your whole lifestyle gets in tune with your job, and it becomes one big wonderful day. So, any more questions?
Yeah,
yes.
So at the point when you're ready and you know that you're needing someone else, what's the interview process like for both sides of that? How do you go out and find someone, and how do they find you, and how do you talk to them, and how does the whole process of interviewing for that work?
Okay, well, I'm glad you asked that. How does the interview process work? It's really not much of an interview. It's more of an organic process, as I've said, but say we got a project and we didn't have a specific developer for part of it, or
Sure.
a specific,
Well, you
how
said
would
you
we...
grew recently in the past
Yes.
couple of months, and you added 2 new
Yes.
employees.
Yes.
How did you go about finding that person, and how did they find you?
They were developers that have worked with us for
Okay.
several months on certain projects that either we didn't have the bandwidth to handle, or the expertise. Usually it's the bandwidth that follows you up, because with 3 people you can't take on a really big project without adding contractors and things like that. So when we do get a project that's too big for us, we do talk to people that we know, because the Drupal community is such a great ecosystem and people are sharing, open and knowledgeable. We pretty much know who might be interested in a part of something that we're working on. So one thing about network is you must always be talking about what you're looking for and what your dreams are, because that's the only way they could get fulfilled. If you don't talk about it and you just try to go on Odesk or whatever and look for some robot to do some work or something, it's going to be boring. So it's kind of like There's different areas of people. Some people go to a party and they'll sit and they'll talk and reminisce about stuff and have beers. Some people who are developers will go to a party and they'll talk about their projects. And their projects are kind of their lives, you know, like maybe not about the code, they're not talking about that, but, well, we have a project that's called NICHQ, for one, and it's the National Infant Mortality Rate Calculate.
That's just one of the things they measure. The
Right,
goal is National Institute of Children's Health Quality.
Right, so it's part of the calculator for infant mortality, but it's for the, could you say it again, Ben?
National Institute for Children's Health Quality.
Right.
It's more focused on
Yes.
positive outcomes, but
So-
they measure that too.
So things like that have a general interest for people who love a good world. And talking with developers about we're doing that, someone might say, wow, I would really love to work on that. What language is that in? You know, you have to start conversations. And as you can tell, probably, I'm not a developer, so that's why I kind of screw things up sometimes when I'm referring to a project. Oh, yes. So basically people you hang around with are interested in what you're doing. So when you talk about things, those things come up, and you might be able to fill a role like, oh, we need someone to do the photo gallery on that site, and you are into themes, so you might be able to, you know, do something theming on our gallery.
All right.
Right. Yes.
So part of it obviously still is, you know, you want to make money, right? You want to have
Yes.
projects you can work on so that you can afford to continue in cooperative and so on. So does that mean then that you're particularly choosy about the projects that you work on, and do you find that people come to you with projects that are, their goals or the way they look at things may align closely with yours?
Yes. And that's a really fun thing. The longer we're in this, the more control, or the more that seems to happen. It's not like we have control over what projects we pick to work on, but it does seem like people that are more aligned with our sensibilities come forward and present themselves as potential clients, which is wonderful. So, yes. Did you have something?
I forgot to mention Palante Tech, which has been around, I think, at least as long as Agaric has.
Palante Tech is another co-op that uses Drupal.
And they're by coastal New York and California.
All right, so that's a,
Yeah, a lot of organizations, like a lot of Drupal shops are distributed, but a lot of cooperatives are.
okay,
I guess
well.
there's more trust when, you know everyone's going to equal say in the decision.
More trust when there's equal say. And I'll add the list of cooperatives using Drupal to my slide deck at the end of the night. Yes, one more?
I was just saying, I think being a freelance Drupal developer is probably one of the hardest things in the world.
Being a freelance Drupal developer is one of the hardest things in the world.
You have to know sales
Yes.
and marketing.
Sales
You
and
need to
marketing.
know how to design and
How to
site
design.
build, pick your modules, then you have to write a module, and then oh my gosh, how do I get this on the server? And I did that for a little while.
Yes.
Very, very hard. So a lot of people, I think, are at the juncture of their life where they're not ready to commit to this, like you said, like a big job.
Yes.
It can feel weighty. They want something that feels a little bit lighter, gives them more freedom. And so that's why I was asking, like, are you just a bunch of freelancers who are getting together that all of a sudden going, well, gosh, we're really good together. Look how we can divvy things up, and that seems
A
like
lot of cooperatives do start that way.
Yes,
Started that way.
you can start that
there's one
way
that
very
become a cooperative. It's
easily.
called Dev Collaborative. That is currently freelancers working together. I never worked them. I've always been amazed at how at freelancers who are able to do everything. But there was a co-founder in Agaric from the start. And,
there's always a vision.
always a vision that we would grow not by adding employees, in a hierarchy, but by adding members as equals. But still, even at the beginning, we could at least he did more design, I did more other development,
You start specializing.
work more in marketing So I don't know. It's from the very beginning there was sharing work. Like people who do everything as
hard.
one person.
Yes.
That's amazing. Yeah, I mean, I guess it's in finding people who want to stay in a cooperative, and it's not just stay in the cooperative, but stay in it with like whatever our at that time our trajectory and level of clients. So we've had several people through it. As far as how people add, we're still working on that process. And one of the members who just joined us, Risa Denarte in Nicaragua, is probably going to do a lot to help us formalize like how we bring on new people. That want to just add themselves to the wiki. You're in. We value
Yes. It's always a work in progress, though. It's not, anything is not written in stone, really, until you all have a consensus about it, and then it can even be voted on then.
So
So.
basically, you're looking for long-term people. You're not
Yes.
looking for someone who's there for a year to succeed the pool.
No, that would be a contractor or something, but yeah, someone who wants to make a commitment to being a part of a long-term venture company, yes. Because we're not just looking for jobs, it's not a thing about just looking for jobs to feed myself today. It's looking for a comfortable life where I have personal capital and, capital. So, yeah, so.
Oh, I was just going to say, not all cooperatives are structured so that it has to be a consensus model. There are
No.
ones with majority votes or, like representative,
Yes.
each member gets one vote. So every person who's a worker under is.
The other thing is an internal structure that you would vote on if you want a consensus or not. So, yes. So, I guess, yeah, ownership is the future. People have been used to looking at the equation and saying, I will go work and make lots of money and put that money into my personal capital and have a wonderful life to do. I'll be able to use all that money to do what I want to do. I have rarely seen that happen. I have seen people get on a treadmill where the more they make, the more they spend. And they never really get that equilibrium balance because their lives are so separate and diverse. They wear two different hats, and figuring out how to get that cash into your personal wealth thing without developing a network, support, or anything like that is kind of a crazy idea that we kind of all bought. But here we are. So, how do you do that? You'd have to define a path. The first thing is to get knowledge about cooperation and cooperative companies. So get familiar with people who are speaking from experience, people who've been in a cooperative, people who've started cooperatives, and get familiar with what they're speaking about. You'd have to define the parameters to do your own cooperative because it's all internally based. It's on what you want. And I'm going to go through these slides, as I said, a little quickly. They're a bit wordy, but they will be in my slide deck when you download it. So, the articles of organization and bylaws, those are up to you as individuals. You make those, you write those. You could form your co-op on a handshake or on a stack of contracts and insurance companies and whatever you wanted to do with it. It's up to you. Again, how do you find coworkers? Well, we just talked about that. You need to find people in the industry that have similar values to what you want to do. Talk to people, constantly talk to people about what you want to do. I want to be in a company that we all work together and we get along and vote on things and we all have input, Let people know that, not just, I'm looking for a job. Okay. Going to events. Well, you're all here, so we don't have to look at this slide. Search and research. Finding out about cooperatives. Say you want to start a cooperative that's in a different area than IT even. Someone in your family might be a great baker or something. You want to start a bakery. Do some research. There are lots of little models that people are working on now that are becoming bigger and bigger models, like Azamati Bakery in San Francisco. They've I'm not even going to tell you. Look them up. many. They've just grown exponentially, and they welcome people coming in. The customers are coming in. They'll tell them about their business model. This is how it should be. Business models have always been secret. You know, like, how'd you make, oh, how'd I make my money? I'm not telling you, you know. Things like that should be open and transparent. That's important. If you're working in a company that you love, you could talk with people who also love it, that are working with you, about going to the owners and asking them to sell the company to the workers. There's a lot of conversions that have been going on, and there are lots of foundations now in place. There are a couple of ones that are really doing a lot of outreach, like the Co-op Fund of New England. They're putting together ways to get grants and funds and money for you to start cooperatives that are needed in your local area. So you may think, oh, I have an idea for a new library thing, or you know, something in my town that would help. You can talk with Cooperative Fund of New England, and there are a few others. They're listed at the end of the presentation about how could I get funding for this and not owe my life to whoever. So, joining a network is really important. In fact, we're having a co-op meetup. Agaric hosts a monthly meetup in Cambridge, and we're having a meetup on networking your way into a cooperative, because a lot of it, information sharing, is networking, and through that you will meet people who support ideas that you have. So these were a few good places that have networks. The USFWC is outstanding. Agaric has been member for a few years, and they're just really doing a great job at bringing the cooperative community together. They have events on each coast and a national event once a year. We just had the East Coast event in Worcester, and it was just amazing to hear people saying, this is a life-changing event.